Hello there, you're welcome to this vocal mixing masterclass where I'll show you how to use an EQ to get polished vocal mixes. Hit the subscribe button and let's get started. Before we get started, this masterclass is an excerpt from our in-depth EQ course on Udemy. Simply click a link in the description below if you want to take this course in full. And if you find this masterclass helpful, I'm sure you find the course even more helpful. Don't forget to once again hit the link in the description below to join the masterclass. And you can also join our free Telegram community by simply clicking the link in the description below. You get access to loop, kits, project files, and more. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to use a parametric EQ to EQ vocals properly. So let's come to our parametric EQ. So this is the parametric EQ and the bands are flexible. You can always reassign your bands. You can even turn them off, change how they operate. You can turn them off completely. I can see this band here is off. But if I can change it to something else. Alright, so now I want to EQ this vocal. Let's listen to the vocal and see.
See, the gun close, no they fun for me. The gun close, make me dance for me. See, your body don't they cover me. See, your body don't they murder me. So baby, one night, baby, I don't feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright, oh. So baby, one night, baby, I don't feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright, alright, tell it alright. So baby, make you dance for me, oh. Baby, make you dance for me, oh.
Alright, so that's the vocal recording. So when EQing vocals, there are two ways to, or rather there are two steps you have to take to EQ your vocals. The first is surgical EQ, where you take care of removing the mod, the resonance, and the harsh frequencies. And secondly is where you enhance the vocal with another EQ. So the first thing we're going to do here is listen and try and take out the mod. For vocals, most times the mod is usually below 80 Hz. So we right click this. Depending on the kind of parametric EQ you have, we want a low pass filter here. So come here, a high pass filter, a high pass filter. Select high pass filter. A high pass filter cuts out low frequencies so a high frequency can pass. So we just sweep it to somewhere around 80 Hz and listen.
Gone close, no they fun for me. Gone close, make me dance for me. Your body don't they cover me.
This curve right here may be too much, so you can right click it and adjust the steep.
See, the gone close, no they fun for me. Gone close, make me dance for me. Your body don't they cover me. Your body don't they murder me.
So one thing you have to make sure when EQing vocals or taking out muddy frequency, you don't EQ to sound too thin, like start sounding like this. That sounds unnatural and too thin. Or that's also terrible. So you want to just make it sound natural at the same time taking out the muddy frequency.
Gone close, make me dance for me. Your body don't they cover me. Your body don't they murder me.
So next, we're going to take out the resonance frequency, that is the mod. And now, I would not advise you to solo your vocals when EQing because you will not get accurate results that way. EQ it with the beat, but make sure you have already gain stage, your beat, and your vocals.
See, the gone close, no they fun for me.
So the muddy frequencies are here, usually within the mid frequency. So you just sweep across and then you listen to see where the muddy frequencies, where the resonance frequencies, and the resonance frequencies kind of sound like this. Your body don't bother me. That's how they sound. So we want to take out the ones that stand out the most. So we just pinch out like 2 bands or highest 3 bands. We don't want to go overboard with it as well. Just 2 or 3 bands is enough, and then we take it out slowly. Then Let's see how we can get that done.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they.
We found one. Let's pinch in again. Make sure you pinch it very as tight as you can so it can be pinpoint accurate.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't.
Yes, that's fine. And then we take this down again.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they murder me. So baby, one night.
Alright, this sounds good. 2 bands happen to be enough. Sometimes if maybe you feel like 3 bands is what you need, you might check the low mid frequency.
See, the come close, no they fun for me.
You see we have one there.
Come close, make you dance for me.
Then you can sweep it again.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night.
So make sure you can stage accordingly.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me.
Alright, now so let's take out the harsh high end. Now not all vocals may have harsh high end, but it's something you should listen to.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body.
Just a slight cut here so it doesn't sound too dull. If you do this, it sounds too dull.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance.
We don't want that. We just want to cut it slightly to tame any harsh high end we may have.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright. Oh, yeah. So baby, one night.
Alright, that sounds good. So now let's go on to the next stage of EQ using another parametric EQ again. So now we may still do a little bit of cuts and boost here and there, but now it's more of just to enhance the vocal.
See, the come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make.
So to enhance, you might just add a little brightness to it, and then okay, let me just explain to you how to enhance vocals first of all before we do anything there. In enhancing vocals, the low end, if you want to add a little bit more bass to it, you can boost the low mid frequencies. That is somewhere between 250 Hz to 500 Hz. The low mid frequencies, you can just boost it by 1 to 3 dB at most. Then if you want to cut out, maybe feel like it's still too basic, you can take it out again by dipping it by, let me dip it down so you see, by 2 to 3 Hz. And then if you want to make it sound more brighter, sound more, maybe more shinier or crispier, you simply boost around 8 kilohertz here so it sounds brighter. So now let me do this in real time so that you see what I'm saying.
Come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you.
Now you see, it sounds like as if it's having more bass to it.
See, come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me.
But if I cut it out,
See, come close, no they fun for me.
you see it sounds thin. So we just boost slightly. We boost and cut slightly when using EQ. We don't do drastic things with EQ, just slight changes.
See, come close, no they fun for me.
So I feel we don't need to add or take out any bass. I feel it's okay. So all we have to just enhance the high end a little.
See, come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body.
So let me take off the EQ so you can hear the difference.
See, come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they murder me.
Let me turn it on.
See, come close, no they fun for me. Come close, make you dance for me. See your body don't they cover me. See your body don't they murder me. So baby, one night.
And it sounds like as if with the EQ, of course, it sounds like as if the voice is now blending in properly now with the beats. So that's how to use EQ. Remember the key points. First of all, you take out the mod with the first equalizer. You take out the mod, then you take out resonance frequency, then you take out any harsh high end, if any. Then with the second equalizer, you check if maybe you need to correct anything. If you feel like you need to add a little bit more bass to the vocal, take out a little more bass, and if you need to brighten it a little or even darken it a little by reducing the high end. So that's how to use parametric EQ to EQ vocals. Let's move on to the next lesson. All right, so we have our semi-parametric EQ here loaded. I'm using the EQ in Virtual Mix Rack. That is the FGS EQ. So I already routed this to the lead vocal, and we're going to, you see, we have the low frequency, the low mid frequency, the high mid frequency, and the high frequency. I'm going to exaggerate what this does so you hear what each of them can do before we actually get in there to work on them. So here we have the frequency range and the how loud we want it to be or how reduced, that is if you want to boost it or attenuate it. Same with this, we have that, and we have how we can reduce it. Then we have the shelving, that is how do you want to shape it. Do you want to make it more precise? For example, if I take it all the way here, it's going to be much more pinch. It's kind of like if I'm pinching it, the way I use the parametric EQ to find in nasal frequencies or resonance frequencies then. But if I have it all the way here, it's going to be really broad. I'm going to just pick the surrounding, kind of like a bell or a tabletop shape. But this other one here is more precise and it pinches it, while this one is more broad and more like a table. And right here we have just basically the same thing that reoccurs. So let me exaggerate it so you hear what it does. This is the vocal. So let me exaggerate it. I'm going to take out, maybe let's say 300 ppm, increase the levels, just increase. And
your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night.
You see how it sounds? It sounds like a radio voice.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body all right.
So we can adjust this. So let's reset all of that. So I want us to take out, just how we EQ our lead vocals, then we'll remove the low end frequency, the low end rumble, and then resonance, and take out some harsher end. But with this EQ, you cannot really have control to take out resonance because it's not as flexible as the parametric EQ, because you are kind of fixed. You cannot just move into anywhere you like and pinch out things. You have to be really precise in what you are doing here. So let's take out some low end rumble. So remember I said that most vocals, the low end rumble starts from around 80 Hz and below. So we can just dial this down all the way to around, let's say, 80 Hz and reduce the signal.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night.
And you see if I take all the way up,
your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night.
It starts to sound thin.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night.
So we don't want that. So we just want to take out the low end.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh.
Then want to, for the low mid, like I said, the resonance frequency is usually in the mid frequencies. And now how do we take care of that? We take this bell right here and be precise, take it all the way here. And then we take this gain all the way up here to listen.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night.
Yeah, so we found our main frequency there, so we just reduce it.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh, so baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night.
Then let's see if we can do the same with the high mid frequency. We'll take this gain all the way up here, pinch it so it's more precise.
Your body done the mother me to baby one night. Baby, I feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh, so baby one night. Baby, your body done the mother me.
So let's adjust that as well.
Your body done the murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright.
And then we can notice some a little bit of harshness in the high end. So we'll take care of that by just reducing some of this.
Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Alright.
And since this is a rack, there are other EQs here. I can still load up another EQ again if I want. So I can load up the same EQ, and then now I can make it, adjust it to sound enhanced. So now I can add a little bit more oomph to it. There's a little bit more body in the high mid frequency just to get it to sound a bit heavier.
Your body done the murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body all.
Then a little high end to make it sound a bit brighter through the mix.
Your body done the murder me. So baby, one.
Now you just have to scroll through the frequency here and trust your ears. So you have to make sure you have really good monitoring, either your speakers or your headphones, so you can really be correct while dialing in your EQ settings. Because now you're not seeing any graph or any display that is helping you out in knowing if what you're doing is right or not. Rather, you have to completely depend on your ears.
Your body done the murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Alright. Girl, it's alright. Baby, make you dance on me. Baby, make you dance on me.
So I think this sounds good for an EQ, but remember, if you are trying to do corrections like take out resonance, it's not be as precise as the parametric EQ. But this is a very good attempt at taking out resonance frequencies with it. But I typically do not use this to take out resonance frequency. I just use this to enhance, like after I use the parametric EQ to adjust my to take out the low end rumble and take out resonance frequencies, then I use this kind of EQ here that is a semi-parametric to enhance the vocal, make it sound even more polished and interesting. But I'm just showing you, if maybe you do not have a parametric EQ and you have access to just this is how you can, with this here, right here, you can pinch out these resonance frequencies in the mid-range and take them out and do a little bit of cuts and enhancement, and you have a great EQ'd vocal track. Let's move on to the next lesson. Alright, so now I'm going to show you how to use graphical EQ for our vocals, kick, and bass. Alright, so let's come to our vocal right here. Replace this, and I'm going to use Waves Graphic Equalizer. I'm going to come to Waves GEQ. So this is how the graphic equalizer looks like. You can see I have about how many bands? About 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. About 30 or 31 bands. 30 bands if I counted correctly. Alright, so now with 30 bands, you see I have access to 25 Hz, 31 Hz, 40 Hz, 50 Hz. You can see the frequency denominations right here. So the more frequency bands I have, the more precise I can, or the more precisely I can EQ the vocal. So if I had to play the vocal through it, so let me, if I reduce the low end, let me take all the low end away so you see how it sounds like.
Your body done the murder me, so baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel.
So you see how thin it sounds. It sounds really, really thin, and we don't want that. So we simply adjust this. You can just take this all the way here. Some do have a reset button you can just press and everything will, okay, yeah, flat, yeah. So this EQ has a reset button and it takes everything out. So now let's see how we can EQ this by taking out our low end rumble first. Remember, I say our low end rumble for most vocals lie within below 80 Hz, and that's always a safe place to start from. So we'll take out.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body.
And we can adjust this a little.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby,
this is a big graphic. You can see a little bit of information here. Some do not show you this information. They just show you only this box right here.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh.
So let's see if we can pick out some of the resonance frequency. So let's start from 800 Hz and see.
Your body done the murder me.
And it's not always advisable to use a graphic equalizer to take out resonance frequency because it can be really inaccurate. For example, you see this right here, you see this curve, this is really, really wide, and it's going to pick out some frequencies that are not really resonant and affect them as well. But if it was a parametric Eq, we just narrow down to just that singular one frequency or a very short and tiny range and take it out. But now you see it's picking up a whole army of frequencies, and we don't want that. So we have to be very careful while picking our resonance frequencies here.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night.
For example, I think we're getting close. Let's check this.
Your body done the murder me, baby.
Okay, I think this is it. Let's see.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby.
So we just adjust this little, just by a little.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh, yeah. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you dey do my body, alright, alright, tell it alright. So baby, make you dance for me, oh. Baby, make you dance for me, oh. Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh, yeah. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey.
Alright, so now let's see if we can find any more resonance frequency.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright.
Alright, I think that's fair enough, but let's just check around 400 Hz and 300 Hz for any.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all.
Then we take out a little.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body.
Alright, so now let's look for the hash frequencies. Usually around 8K. Let's look for this is 8K.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night.
And you see, just like any other EQ, slight changes are always the best changes to make. You don't have to make something drastic, just slight changes.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh, yeah. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you dey do my body, alright, alright, tell it alright. So baby, make you dance for me, oh. Baby, make you dance for me, oh.
Alright, so now let's use the EQ to enhance it. So I'm going to load it up again. You must not use always the same type of EQ. You can always use different EQs, but since this is a master class, I have to show you this, assuming this is the only option you have. So let's see, GEQ. So now let's enhance it. Let's just add a little bit of body to a little bit of body.
Your body done the murder me, baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body, alright. Tell it's alright, tell it's alright. Oh, yeah. So baby, one night. Baby, I dey feel your body all night.
You really have to trust your ears while using this kind of EQ.
Your body done the murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I didn't feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body all.
Then let's add a little bit of shine.
Your body done the murder me. So baby, one night. Baby, I didn't feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Girl, it's alright. Girl, it's alright. Oh, yeah. So baby, one night. Baby, I didn't feel your body all night. It's the way you do my body alright. Alright, girl, alright. Baby, make you dance on.
So that's how to use GEQ. That is a graphic equalizer for vocals. So you have a little bit more precision with a graphic equalizer than you do with a semi-parametric. There's more flexibility, although it depends on the number of bands you have. Because there's some graphic equalizers that have just 4 bands, and it's not as precise as this. But this has a lot of bands, about 30 or 32 bands, and you can be very, very precise to an extent, but still not as precise as the parametric EQ. Alright, so let's move on to the next lesson. Alright, so if you find this masterclass helpful, don't forget this is an excerpt from our full-length course on EQ on Udemy. You can simply click the link in the description below to join in on the course, and you find it even much more helpful than this masterclass. I promise you that. And also, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button so you can get notified anytime we drop more helpful content like this on YouTube. I remain Sir Classy. This is SC Tuts. Hit the subscribe button. Cheers.